this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So social media, along with Substack, will be provided for you, along with my email. Ratings are greatly important, and it contributes and it builds to the success of my podcast. And it's really important to engage with all of you, and I would greatly appreciate any feedback. The best way to do that is follow me, make comments on Substack, or email me. So briefly, I'll list some of the audio platforms that I'm on, and I'm looking to grow to on all of the audio platforms, particularly podcast platforms, that is. So Spotify for podcasters, Overcast, Pocket Cast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, just to name a few. And ratings are greatly important. So on these podcast platforms that I listed, please feel free to give a rating. And share my podcast. If you want to spread the word and get the word out there and you enjoy it, my content, please feel free to do so. All right, so this podcast is about the food culture of, drumroll please, boom, that is Wethersfield, Connecticut. All right, so let's dive in. What can I say about food? So, food, on top of the aspects of being a cultural statement, I said things about this and on Substack, and feel free to go on and click that link on my Substack writing page and read my writing pieces that I've done so far about food and the different cultures, which I'm covering the countries, cities that I've already done. The people who read my writings on Substack. So, I think it's beyond that too with food, of what I'm saying, with what people value in a culture, and then what people value in a culture, how people see food and its aspects of their everyday life. So it digs deep into what is the meaning behind food and how it is sustainable for people and how people feel about food. So what am I saying about this? What I mean by this? Okay, so for instance, food is seen a lot differently to people who go to farmers markets versus people who mainly consume food that is processed versus people who know how to grow food versus people who live in a concrete urban jungle and have aspirations to grow food but don't really have. And I'm not saying that's for always the case for people who live in the city who don't really know the mechanics, understand the process of growing food versus people and who need good nutrition, who don't have a lot of money, and the aspects of that and the conditions of that, of the problems with that goes with processed food being the predominantly thing that they can't afford. And it also breaks down to the globally and also the global and internationally, and then in American soil, of how things are shipped to us worldwide, and how all these different cultures are influenced in the American culture and how we view food. And also the aspects on the psychological ideas of food for comfort, what that digs deep into too. So, I guess there's a lot to say about it. The idea of food. All right, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to read about and address the historical background and then go into the modern aspects of talking and listening about top restaurants. So here we go. All right, so this is from the Wethersfield Historical Society. So in the mid-1990s, many long-settled communities along the eastern seaboard of Plymouth, Williamsburg, St. Mary City, of a few cities established the programs called foodways. So this is an aspect of what they were doing. They were exploring the history and in some cases recreating the foods used throughout the years in these communities. Culinary historian Paul Corkin, believe the pronunciation of that, began Wethersfield's own foodways with a series of columns that he wrote that lasted from 95 to 96 for the then newly created Wethersfield Life newspaper. So these entries were a series available in back issues of Wethersfield Life at the Wethersfield Public Library. All right, so members of this culture had already shown English settlers how to survive. So I'm going back to the history, the actual history. And this is what it said. So, of the Algonquins of the native people. So members of the culture had already shown English settlers how to survive the first years of the starving time at both Plymouth Rock and Jamestown. Shh, hush, baby. Plymouth Rock and Jamestown by teaching them the agriculture of the New World. While the first Wethersfield settlers faced no hardship, the agriculture techniques of the Algonquins had already been adopted into the lifestyle of these Massachusetts thought process or methods. The Native Americans whom the settlers met were members of the tribe called the Wagons, whose chief was named Heg. He apparently owned land on both sides of the river from the south to the middle town and the approach of what became New Haven. He sold the settlers a tract of land 6 miles north to south and 8 miles east to west. Don't do that, baby girl, okay? All right, so what did the Wagons eat? Native Americans' food stuff consisted of whatever the men caught and hunted, and what the women grew in the fields and gathered in the woods and swamps. The principal meats were deer, eating fish or dried, rabbits, squirrels, raccoons, woodchucks, even skunks, all went in the pot. Fish and the shellfish, when available, were eaten. The Connecticut River provided an ample source of salmon, catfish, and trout, just to name a few items. Fowls such as wild turkey, geese, and numerous species of ducks that swarmed on the Connecticut River were also devoured. The women were responsible for the field crops. Principals among were the three sisters, which is the corn, beans, and squash. Corn, green or ripe, fresh or dried, was the most important. Mixed with other ingredients, it became the basis of succotash, a staple of the people's diet. A wide variety of beans were grown, as was summer, crookneck, Hubert, acorn, scallop, squash, along with pumpkins and Jerusalem artichokes. From the woods and swamps, the women gathered the wild berries, the wild onions, berries, and all sorts of nuts, milkweeds, and skunk cabbage, ground nuts, and pound lily roots. All of these wild edibles had been discovered by the Algonquins over several centuries. The principal ways in which the food was prepared were boiling, roasting, and grilling. There were 2 set meals, a breakfast before noon and dinner in the evening. Visitors were always welcome to partake in family meals. Following are some of sample recipes if you are feeling adventurous and want to create the Native American meals. And you can go along. And if you're interested in this, I will have the link for you on Substack. And the link will be provided for you. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. The last 100 acres are of their land and was also sold to and reimburse Middleton for expenses associated with caring for Soheg's last descendant. So the disappearance of this community in Connecticut, the Warmapunk disappearance in the Connecticut community, both black and white, but not without having first added their culinary tradition to the Wethersfield foodways. So what I'm gathering, that the native surroundings and the native aspects of the people who lived there and the early settlers and all of this gave way to more blacks coming into the community throughout the modern society of Wethersfield, Connecticut. And it's quite interesting to understand and hear this history. It gives a lot of more in-depth details to this story of in any country, city. It's just really nice to know. Now, a lot of people, that's a lot of school of thoughts about this, but it's also interesting and it's good to dig deeper into the history and, learn more about what you learn in school or what you perceive to know, because it's a lot of times one of those rules of thumbs that the winners write the history versus the actual story. But it's a lot to take in about that. But my point is, it's good to know your history. All right, here we go. On to the listings of different places in Wethersfield, Connecticut. All right, here we go. Okay, the Charles. So, customers' favorites from this restaurant: salads, steak frites, French onion soup, Sunday sauce, truffle fries, Caesar salad, Sicily deviled eggs, and twin Scott eggs, just to name a few things. And it says it's great service, great food, and it's a nice atmosphere. And it has the old York of feel of town, of the colonial history in which the restaurant's located in the house. Looks like a house. Okay, hungry pot Korean barbecue and hot pot. So for this is Korean barbecue, soup broth, crab legs, hot pot barbecue, crawfish, edamame, just to name a few. All right, Stella's Pizza and Italian restaurant. So faves of this is cheese pizza, garlic bread, everything pizza, buffalo chicken, cheeseburger and French fries, pepperoni and pineapple pizza, buffalo wings, and margarita pizza, just to name a few. And it's another Italian restaurant. And it's quite interesting, the different Italian restaurants. There's actually two, and I'm going to read from the Pizza House. So, Wethersfield Pizza House. Chicken parm, the chicken parm grinder, chicken cutlet sandwich, chicken sandwich, meatball grinder, roast beef, 8-inch chicken cutlet grinder, American style chicken cutlet, and chicken parmesan sub. And there is a Japanese and sushi restaurant, Hibachi Steakhouse. So favorites of this is the Ichi, I believe the pronunciation of it, the shrimp of the name of the restaurant. So sushi bar, salmon steak scallop, and shrimp all over fried rice. The spider roll, seaweed salad, and assorted sushi, just to name a few things. Max's Bibos. As a wrap for the favorites of the customers, a wrap, chicken cutlet, deli sandwiches, turkey on ciabatta, roast beef sandwich, egg sandwich, Greek salad. And angry tofu. People favorites of this restaurant is fried dumplings, kimchi pancakes, spicy there, spicy combination there, fried tofu, soon tofu soup, just to name a few items. Smoke on Main. So customers of this restaurant like brisket, pork, belly, brunt ends, mac and cheese, baked beans, poke salad, chocolate chip cookies, macaroni and cheese, mac and cheese, cheese and wings. Drum roll, coffee roasters. And this is a coffee house, and it's very interesting how most of the restaurants that I'm talking about, they're in the historical houses. It looks, for the most part, are this forefront of town, and it's quite interesting how they're merging the history, which most of the times that's something that can't be pushed out. The historical background of a city, of a country. And when it's really a nice decorative touch when, bless you, sweetheart, when business owners, particularly restaurateurs, people in the restaurant business, when they understand the aspect and want to preserve that and the atmosphere of their restaurants. And I think that's quite nice. And then that's the main reason why I'm bringing up about this coffee shop, this coffee house. And Mommy, go get me. Okay, hold on, baby. And also, to add on to this, the customer favorites of the Marcus Diner. And I think it's quite interesting how it actually looks like a 50s diner from the outside. It's very interesting. Home fries, eggs Benedict, potatoes, sausage, French fries, and spinach, tomato, feta cheese, omelet with bacon, just to name a few items, and a Polish platter. So on the end of this, talking about, and then you can hear how the aspects of the colonial dish or the colonial meals, how that's influenced into the modern dishes of Wethersfield, Connecticut. And listeners from Wethersfield, please be greatly appreciated. Give me comments, email me about your thoughts, about what you would like for me to cover and say. It'd be greatly appreciated. So my thoughts is how you can see that seeping into the tradition and to the culture of the modern plate of what's going on in these restaurants of today in Wethersfield, Connecticut. And it's quite interesting how everything evolves over time, and how I mentioned how people who are in the restaurant business, how they value and they understand the importance of the traditional culinary cuisines of their towns, and how they put a fresh spin on it. So it gives new generations the understanding of what it might have been like, or what the palate might have tasted. So how the palate might have tasted, and the foundation of the history of which the city is from. And particularly, I think it's quite interesting with the different culinary cuisines, of the colonial era, particularly with how mutton and things of that nature, how the process was done. And think about it, we're dealing with the elements of not having the modern comforts of a stove, electricity, things like that. Just using the earth and using your resources and being resourceful in your resources of how to cook meals and how to preserve meat and hunt and gathering meat and salting things down in order to preserve the nature of the meat so it can last and can eat, and the flavors, and how the trial and error and figuring out things about different spices, or how food can taste and how it can evolve into different aspects of meals, desserts, different aspects of meats, and it's quite mind-blowing to me when you think about it. And then the concept of cooking over a fire and pots and all of these things is something definitely to think about and devour into while you reflect possibly on the meals and the traditions of Wethersfield, Connecticut. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now. And on next week, I'm going to continue out about different mythologies, the reasons and behind urban legends, and a spill on to that, and then on to the next state on Friday. Take care, and on to those charted waters there out there. Bye-bye now.